Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Hello, listeners of In the City. This is David Merritt here, bringing you another bonus episode from our coverage at the World Economic Forum in Davos. On the sidelines of the conference, I sat down with Thierry Mallaret. Thierry is an economist who's worked as an advisor for major investment banks and governments, and he also has a long history with the World Economic Forum. He founded and headed the Global Risk Network at WEF, and for a number of years in succession, he conceived and put in place the program for the annual Davos meeting, where we are this week. He's also now an author, known for co-writing COVID-19, The Great Reset, with the founder of the forum himself, Klaus Schwab, but also some very interesting fiction more recently, including Deaths at Davos, a thriller set in a place loosely familiar, but not actually the World Economic Forum. And now we have Deaths at Davos 2.0, a dark satire of what's really going on within the World Economic Forum.
Welcome to the City of London.
The City of London.
The next station is Bank. Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
The financial heart of the country.
The City.
The City.
Welcome to In the City.
Stand clear of the doors, please.
Thierry, welcome to In the City.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you for spending some time with us here. We're sitting in Davos. The snow is falling outside. This is a place that you know very, very well indeed. So I want to come up talk about your book, of course, but just dialing it back, just tell us a little bit about your involvement with this place, because I want to understand from your perspective, how has the World Economic Forum evolved from its kind of original core mission to what we have around us today? Take us back to the beginning.
Sure. So I was an employee of the World Economic Forum from 2000 to 2007. I was first in charge of Davos for 3 or 4 years, and then I created the Global Risk Network, which is a publication that is issued a week before Davos, measuring global risk as seen from the perspective of global CEOs, members of the World Economic Forum. And then I left, but I stayed in touch with Klaus Schwab, and I wrote several books with him.
So Klaus Schwab, in case anybody listening doesn't know, Klaus Schwab is the World Economic Forum, isn't he?
That's his creature.
It's his creature, his creation.
Absolutely.
Hard to imagine it without him. Just tell us a little bit about him as a figure and how important he is to this gathering.
He's absolutely vital to the gathering. I think this is a 55th edition, if I'm not mistaken. So he created the World Economic Forum 55 years ago. It's very much his creature. He's been at the helm ever since the organization was founded. He's now 86. He's still in charge.
He's still been on stage this
He's
week,
still on
right?
stage,
He's
despite having relinquished his role as executive chairman. But he's the chairman of the foundation board, which is a body that dictates what the World Economic Forum is all about. So yes, he's very much the person in charge. That's his baby.
It's his baby, and he still persuades people to travel from all around the world to come. I mean, this discussion about, and we were talking a bit about this earlier, this debate about how relevant is the World Economic Forum? Why travel to Switzerland in January in the freezing cold? Is it because of the ability to actually be in person that is still necessary? Why does this meeting still have relevance today?
Because, well, when I joined the forum, the motto was still very much the driving force, committed to improving the state of the world.
So that's the mission statement.
That's the mission statement.
There, right?
I don't think it has any validity any longer. Now, the World Economic Forum in Davos and in other places has become the mother of all platforms. Yeah. Everybody comes because that's the place where you do business. It's a fantastically efficient platform. If you're a business, you come because you're going to meet your suppliers, your customers, your regulators, the central bankers, the head of state of the countries in which you do business. If you're the head of state, you're meeting your peers, the companies that do business in your country. So everybody has an incentive to attend because it's remarkably efficient as a platform. You meet everybody in a week.
But so the incentive is efficiency, it's doing business, it's doing deals. So that's quite different to improving the state of the world.
Totally different. I think improving the state of the world has become irrelevant.
Improving the state of your balance sheet or your bottom line. Should they shift it to that?
Absolutely. That's one of the points we develop in the book.
Right.
I write about in the book. Absolutely. It's about improving the P&L.
Improving the P&L. But that's real, right? I mean, I think
it's
that's
very
why people
real.
are showing up.
And again, hats off to Klaus Schwab and the organization for having succeeded in managing this transformation.
Because it's not a cheap thing to come to, is it, Davos? I mean, I think we're sitting in an apartment with the Bloomberg studio set up here, but people are renting out their apartments for huge amounts of money. The prices for the hotels are astronomical. Restaurant bookings are really hard to come by. Getting here and being part of this is an investment, isn't it?
It is an investment, and companies come because they generate a good return on the investment.
Yeah.
Everything, as you said, is obscenely expensive.
It's obscenely expensive.
And yet people come. Why? Because they generate a good return.
Yeah. And it's not just, so all the stuff that happens on stage, so there's the conference center, Klaus Schwab holding court, world leaders, business titans conducting conversations. It's all the stuff that happens outside the conference center, isn't it? It's the parties, it's the drinks parties. I mean, I've just been here, it's Thursday today, all week. The chatter is around what things are people getting invited to. Every corporation, every organization seems to be hosting some sort of party. Has that always been the case? Has it always been about the kind of the networking and the kind of the late night drinking?
Well, it was the case when I was in charge of Davos, so 20 years ago. I think there were about 1,000 private events on the margin of the official event. Today, it's very hard to measure this number. But talking to different people this week, they tell me it could be anything between 2,000, 3,000, and 5,000.
Wow.
Which I believe is real.
Yeah.
For example, on Monday, I went to what I think is the most important for me private event in Davos, which is the Bill Brothers dinner.
Right.
So everybody who has an interest in Russia, which is my case, tends to participate in this private event. Well, Bill doesn't pay anymore. It is not a white badge because he's saying that it's not interesting for him to do so. But he has this remarkable dinner. And so every night you have God knows how many hundreds of dinners, not only in Davos, in clusters, in Sargans, in Zurich.
Right. And those, so in a way, that's the hotter ticket, right? To get an invite to one of these dinners where you will meet and have a sort of insight and conversation that actually is going to serve you better than going and listening to someone talk in the Congress Center.
And every private company present in Davos has its own dinner, lunch, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and just to explain, if anyone doesn't, so the badge system is this is the sort of the pecking order at Davos, right?
Very much so.
The white badge is the
much coveted white badge.
That's for the 1%, the 0.1 percenters, isn't it? So that's the CEOs, my boss, he had a white badge. And then you have the lowly hacks like me with an orange badge, basically. That's the media. So there are these different colour systems.
And nobody like me because I don't have a badge.
But you don't feel you need one, right?
No, because
you can come here and actually it's peripheral to actually, you don't need to go into the conference centre.
Absolutely. So there are many hangers-on like me.
Right.
God knows how many.
But you're at the Bill Browder dinner, so it sounds like you were right where you needed to be.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a bit about your book, Thierry. So I'm so fascinated by this. You worked at the WEF for years. You have been very much an insider in this institution and its growth. And you've written a book. We've got your second book, a novel here. First one, Deaths at Davos. We now have Deaths at Davos 2.0. Tell us about the story. It's a thriller set at this forum. Tell us about the idea and what happens in the book.
Well, first of all, a word of warning. It's a fictional place.
Yes.
So the thriller takes place at the annual gathering organized by the Circle. And
okay, so this is not, to be clear, we're not talking about the World Economic Forum.
No, but it takes place, it's a thriller, so it has to be grounded in reality.
Yes.
And because I was part of the WEF, I understand the functioning of this annual gathering. So that's the backdrop. But again, it's not about the WEF. So the idea is to explore in a thriller, first of all, what's happening behind the scenes of Davos. And there is a lot happening. That nobody sees. The sex parties, for example, and I describe one of them in the book. A lot of this is happening. Everything closes
Yeah.
in principle at 10 a.m.,
Right.
10 p.m.,
10
sorry,
p.m.
10 p.m., and then a huge amount of
And
activity
then more
takes place.
happens.
More happens.
On a slightly
So you want to go
racier...
behind the scene to get a sense of what's happening.
Right.
And also, that's my thick thriller. So I have an appetite for thrillers. And I think that when you write fiction, you are bound by nothing except the power of your own imagination. So, instead of writing an essay of what a global gathering is all about and what's happening, I think a thriller opens many, many doors that you wouldn't be able to explore otherwise.
Yeah.
And this is a spy thriller because there is such a huge concentration of power in Davos: financial power, political power, economic power, media power. Let's think about how enticing this may be for intelligence services. And this is what this book explores through the lens of what's happening between the US and Russia at the moment. So the idea was really to figure out what Trump is going to do to intelligence services in the US and how this might affect the geopolitical order in the months to come.
Right.
And the plot. And I don't want to say more than that, because otherwise...
We'll buy the book and read it, right? So, and Davos, I mean, it is perfect as a setting for a story like this, isn't it? And
of course.
If you're walking around the town, you can see, we were in the Congress Center yesterday with the Ukrainian President Zelensky. John McArthur, editor-in-chief, did an interview with him. There are snipers on the roofs. There are helicopters overhead. The security is palpable. That sort of sense of tension is there because of the people that are walking around. So it is not a huge stretch of an imagination to go from that to thinking,
of course not,
what's going on beneath the surface.
Not. But you couldn't write an essay or an article in a journal about it, because by virtue, intelligence is about what you don't know.
Yeah.
If you know about it, it's not intelligence anymore.
Yeah.
So you can only explore this via a novel,
a
thriller. And this is what I'm trying to do in this book.
And to stress, completely fictionalized, everyone, any lawyers listening out there.
Well, it's fiction, but grounded in reality.
But grounded in reality. Because, I guess the serious side is there are serious implications for the conversations that are happening here that affect the non-1% of people. There are big problems happening in the world. There are conflicts happening in the world. And you have the power brokers of the planet convening here in this place. So this idea that there's this kind of underbelly of activity here is quite compelling, isn't it? For
it is very much so. And again, so much is happening in this underbelly.
Yeah.
There is what everybody sees, and you report wonderfully about this.
Yeah.
And then there is what's happening in the underbelly, which is probably even more significant.
Yeah.
Because Trump's election, as we can see this week, is going to change everything in the US and in the rest of the world.
And it's been, certainly this week, it's felt to me like it's the conversations that aren't happening on the stage, the conversations that no one really is willing to have in public, because everyone has been watching actually what's been happening in Washington this week.
Of course.
So that has really heightened this sense of the action happening slightly off stage here, and everyone watching and waiting to see what the new president's going to do. We all know that he's doing a lot. And it's going to affect the businesses, the economies, the countries that are represented here this week. But it's all slightly out of their control, which feels a little bit unusual for the power brokers who are here as well. They don't like it particularly.
No, absolutely. And you said before we started this interview that there was a sentiment that Europe is very fearful about the future. And this is what this book explores in particular, because there's so many reasons to assert that geopolitically, economically, financially, Europe is going to be increasingly vulnerable in the years to come. And you saw it by interviewing. When interviewing the European leaders, everybody is guarded.
Everybody's
incredibly careful about what they're saying.
They don't want to get on the wrong side of the new president.
Absolutely not, because otherwise you are in trouble.
But also, the other thing we've heard this week as well is they feel Europe's being left behind. The American economy, the American companies, they are galloping away over the horizon. There doesn't seem to be any solutions to the problems the structural problems that Europe have got. And it feels even more personal. Everyone's coming to Switzerland to talk about
there might be an upside when Europe is stuck with its back against the wall. Maybe at the moment when
shake it out of its...
Yeah, absolutely. Policies will be put into place, and Europe will invest more into defense. GDP part of
That's got to be the hope, right?
Defense spending will increase, and because they'll be forced to do that.
Yeah. And then maybe they will be improving the state of the world. Is that going to be the way?
Absolutely.
Back to its
and
roots?
as we saw this year, things change incredibly fast.
Incredibly fast.
Everything that's happening this week was unimaginable last year at Davos.
I mean, it really was, right?
Almost.
It was. I mean, I think there was definitely a sense of foreboding about political shifts last year. But you're right. I feel like the conversation last year had none of the angles that are at the forefront this year.
Absolutely. And here we are.
So what's next, Thierry? Are we going to have a 3.0?
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah, this is a whole series.
It's such a fantastic opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be the next one next year.
There will be more deaths at Davos.
Absolutely. Of course.
I look forward to reading that. Thierry Mallaret, thank you so much for telling us about your book and with your history with this forum. And maybe we can come back next year and
I'd be delighted.
And talk about the sequel. Okay.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of In the City from Bloomberg. It was hosted by me, David Merritt. It was produced by Summer Sardi and Moses Andam. Sound design is by Blake Maples, and Brendan Francis Newnham is our executive producer. Special thanks to Thierry Mallaret. Please do subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts.